Jim Collison and live from Omaha, Nebraska, and the office is in India. This is Gallup's Call to Coach, recorded on October 10th. Actually, it's 11th for you, 2014. Call to Coach is a resource for those who want to help others discover and use their strengths. We have Gallup experts and independent strengths coaches share tactics, insights, and strategies to help coaches maximize the talents of individuals, teams, and organizations around the world. If you have questions or comments during this webcast, we do have a live chat room that's available for you right below the video window. And if you're listening to the recorded version, or if you have questions about custom strengths coaching solutions for small, medium, or large organizations, you can send us an email. Contact us, coaching@gallup.com, or on the contact page that's available right there, coaching.gallup.com. And don't forget to visit the Gallup Strength Center. Really easy, just gallupstrengthcenter.com for all your coaching resources and training needs. You can also catch the video in both streaming and downloadable audio, but for offline listening, I'll mention at the end of the program we have new RSS feeds available if you want to automatically download this to your phone as well. All of that is available over at coaching.gallup.com. Pooja Luthra is our host today. She works in as an advanced consultant with Gallup and out of our Delhi office. Pooja, it's great to see you again, and welcome to another Call to Coach.
Thanks, Jim. Good morning. Hi. Welcome back to the Indian edition of Gallup Call to Coach. Over the past months, we've had so many interactions with Gallup-Certified coaches, and they've told us about how they have applied the idea of strength-based development in the different areas that they work from, ranging from students to organizations, individuals, teams, etc. In our endeavor to take that forward, to see how Gallup development. Today we have with us Rajat. Rajat is also a certified Gallup coach, and he works in the area of global business transformation. So he's an advisor in that domain, which of course, I'm going to let him elaborate on that as we go further. But what I do know about Rajat is he's had the opportunity to apply the idea of strengths-based development across global organizations, across teams, across individuals, in helping them transform people, processes, technology, and all of that. So Rajat, a very, very warm welcome to you, and it's very, very nice to see you again.
Thank you, Pooja. Thanks a lot. And I'm also very happy to be here, meeting you after a long time, being in the Gallup office today, and also, thanks, Jim, for organizing this. I've been watching these webcasts, and happy to be here to share what I am doing. Thank you.
Great. So Rajat, the customary question, why don't you start by telling us what your top 5 are, and then tell a little bit about your journey in the area of strengths-based development.
Sure. So the background to my introduction to strength is almost, I would say now 10 years back, I shifted careers. I moved from the sales and marketing function into completely different industry, into IT industry, when it was actually picking up, booming. And I learned some softwares, did some training, cross-skill, upskill, and then moved into this industry. And it was a different world for me, completely unknown world. And the reason I got into that was because of my functional experience in sales marketing as a business analyst. But I had to work with people who had 20, 30 years of experience, that too, across India, across UK. And I had the opportunity to really work very closely with these experts. And I also was positioned as one of the experts with a functional background in IT industry. So I had a huge challenge, actually, and I was thinking whether I made a mistake or I'm in the right place. So how do I really, make a difference? And that's the point where I actually was looking to know more about myself, that I got introduced to Strengths Finder. Took the assessment, and then I realized that there are certain things which are unique about me, which I need to bring to the surface, and that made all the difference. From that point, I actually, really brought in the transformation in the way I was working with my client. My business knowledge I could bring forth. Even in the technical work, I could bring my strengths. So that's how my introduction was. And then in 2012, before the certification program, 2 years before that, I did the assessment again. So my top 5 are actually maximizer, intellection, input, learner, and connectedness. And in fact, to share, maximizer, really, we did it, Pooja, you remember in our program in January, we had that exercise where we pick up photograph, one or
Yeah.
two which we like the most. So
Yep.
I still have this one, if you can see, the audience, everybody there. It's
Yeah.
there and, very clearly visible at my home. And a lot of this explains, maximize is about bringing transformation at the individual level and at the group level. So whether it be people, and I do a lot of work in IT, as Pooja mentioned, in the systems, IT, and process space. So this really is my need. I lead by thinking, how can I make it better? How can I make it better from here, move it a notch up? So that drive is at the individual level and also in terms of the kind of work that I enjoy. And I would say intellection, input, learner, all these really kind of make me a little more versatile to pick up any area. And I have to choose which area I would like to be expert in, because I really, I mean, I have thousands of books. I still stand in a bookshop and I can spend a day. So that kind of a need is there, and all this together, along with Maximizer, kind of bring the right focus for me. And also connectedness. I think connectedness, it helps me connect across cultures. I have really been working, another picture here where I'm with a team where I was facilitating a business transformation workshop in Sweden. And here we have a group of people from Denmark, Finland, Sweden, India, and it was, I always, in these workshops get a very positive feedback that it is, people enjoyed it and there is a good outcome out of it. So that tells me that, this is my strength and strength in action. So it's been that way very satisfying. And one thing I really realized, being as a coach and also on the transformation journey myself, that all these talents, and I think it's a formula very clearly in our Gallup, work, is that the talent into investment is equal to strength. So I realized that, strength is not an easy journey always. It's a journey where we bring our talent, put it through a challenge, take the opportunities, and then see it shine. Because it's not always that we get to do what we do best, though we have to model towards that. And the other thing I realized is that every strength has an inside, and I think that was beautifully explained in that, the maturity, strength, maturity information that was shared. But so it's about, how I have the strength and how is it expressed outside. For example, my input must lead to some output. If I have a transformational maximizer, then it must create something or transform something outside. If I'm a learner, then I must be able to express it as somewhere I should be able to express it. So each of these had a manifestation outside in the world. Unless I do that, I would not really. So that's my journey, really. That's where I am, to see how my awareness about these strengths is really making a difference. Yeah.
Great, thanks, Rajat. I've always maintained that, and I'm going to reiterate it listening what you just said, that the best coaches who can take the idea of strengths-based development forward are the ones who've had that aha moment themselves.
Right.
And from what you've just told me, it's been a journey for you, not just the 5 days that we were together in the program, but it's been a longer journey for you of self-awareness. Because the more you are self-aware, the more you see how your maximizer combines with your input, your intellection, etc., and you see the manifestations right there. The self-awareness is what would make you a great coach that can translate that for other people as well. So that is very, very encouraging. So tell me a little bit about that, Rajat. I mean, with the entire change from sales and marketing into IT, and then getting onto the idea of strengths-based development to overcome the challenge that you had for yourself. Have you had the opportunity to also, maybe coach other people, or when you do the business transformations, when you lead people through this idea of change management, has the idea of strengths come into play when you are talking to individuals and taking them along this change management path?
Yeah, absolutely. So once I had this experience myself a couple of years back, I actually came back to India. I was at that time in UK for some time, and I realized our client expected us to be more business centric, whereas we were more technology centric. And they always wanted, they wanted that we start to show, that understanding of business. And it wasn't easy for two reasons. One was probably people were more technically oriented, they were trained like that, and they had not had enough exposure to business. So there was a natural keenness for them to work more on technology. So what I started doing, and I was lucky to get that opportunity in the organization. I started to build up a practice which was more around strengths. So I really, again, quite excellent inputs that came from the Gallup, break all the rules, and the great managers. I used all that in terms of when I was really hiring, interviewing. I was supposed to build up a global business analyst and consulting practice. So I used to listen for where do they shine, what is it that they enjoy, what gives them the satisfaction. Though their CV said a lot of other things, but I would not really spend that much time. I would just look quickly at what background do they have, which companies they have, and that kind of helped me to identify people who could work with my understanding on the environment where they have to be deputed, which is more business centric, irrespective of their technology background. So that whole approach of focusing on, where they can contribute naturally, and a lot of questions, a lot of interview was around that. So gradually I started to build that, and over the period, those consultants were deployed in UK, in New Zealand, Australia, US, and had pretty good feedback coming. And I tracked them for a few years, how they are doing. Then I actually introduced strengths as well, and looked at two categories of people in the organization, one who were top performers and one who were really not there. So both categories we looked at strength, and I have many stories. People moved industries, people moved roles. They kind of got aware, and some of them, for example, went for MBA, some of them took a break, and they were across the age group. Some people were above 50, some were just starting their career. For example, somebody was very strong in development, which requires coding skill, but the person was doing testing. It's typically in IT world. He got awareness, and the managers gave him an opportunity. Otherwise, they were giving him whatever was available first. So this practice was instituted in that small group, and then I got the opportunity to share it with the leadership team. And at that time, they agreed. At that time, the organization was 30,000 people. Now it is 85,000 people. To take it forward across the organization, I got a recognition for, thanks to Gallup, I got the Innovation Award. So, but this is one of the early experiments, and a lot of inspiration and input coming from the work that Gallup did. And yes, I'm coaching individuals as well. Yeah.
Yeah, perfect, Rajat. I mean, of course, we've done the research, etc. But I'm always awed by the application that most of you that we've spoken to on Call to Coach and even otherwise, the applications that you've made out of the science is very, very encouraging even for us. So thank you for that. The one thing that stuck to me when you were mentioning what you did is about when you're talking to people and getting the awareness into the talents and strengths, etc. It's more about asking them the right questions, because a lot of things which is stated on a CV, which is factual, etc., may not really give you the whole picture of what the person might be good at. So that is a great starting point. I wanted to ask you, which is something which a lot of coaches also sort of struggle with sometimes, is when you use the idea of talents and strengths, of course, it leads to some sort of a transformational change, which you said for some people it could be roles, understanding what they're good at, what they could like to do better. How do you encourage them to sustain the idea of talents and using their strengths on an everyday basis? Is there something that you've been innovating around that also that you'd like to share?
Yeah, absolutely. And thanks. That's a great question. And I think my learning, because I have spent almost 10 years, and I think it can go off. It can really, and again, Gallup has done a lot in terms of building posters, in building a visible top 5 there to keep it, after a program we have it. Now, what I have seen, and interestingly, I see different people. Now, this concept is coming up. I was coaching somebody who's actually shifting industry. He's been a manufacturer, and now he wants to be a full-time business and a life coach. So I was working with him, and we were, after a few sessions, he was thinking about giving an identity to his coaching practice besides coming up with the coaching framework of his own. He's got intellection as one of his themes, and so he wanted to give an identity, and we were discussing. I said, what do you think could be, you would like to give it as your identity? And he started to think from the marketing perspective. He's been running business. He has been an entrepreneur. Now he's a good knowledge of system, processes, finance. But suddenly in the middle of the conversation, he said, what about if I bring the reflection of my top 5 into my theme? And he's also got empathy. He's got intellection. He's got responsibility, deliberation. So he said, and I really got surprised because, even in the conversation, we just don't only talk strengths all the time, but he brought it up. And then he said that, what if I give, I said, so what's coming to your mind? So he said, he thought for a moment, and they said, okay, what about, mindful coaching with a heart? I said, where is it coming from? He said, because I have intellection, so I can think models, and it's his top one is the leads with intellection. Then he's got empathy, at the third. So he said, I can relate to people, I can connect. I have business background, but this is where I get my energy from. This is what I will be able to differentiate on and add value. So I said, great, think about it. So I think somewhere I've seen, to coming back, that people have it if they have some way of remembering it. For example, the Gallup application, that's a good step in that way. 3 things I talk about really is consistency. And my coaching, I have found out, in any coaching that way, what happens is that the slip happens when there isn't consistency, when the old behaviors start to creep in. For that, I think we have to anchor it. I realized it, again, on a personal journey, that usually I say, if we pick up even if a simple exercise like a walk, 5 minutes walk, be consistent, 365 days, world moves, you don't have to stop. And with that, that anchoring, there are many things that can be anchored. So even use of strengths, but anything will have to be repeated. So the coaching sessions, consistency can lead to that. Then accountability, they need to share their progress. It's not importantly with me, but somewhere they will have to show how they are demonstrating that progress. Is very, very important. So I think these 2 things together I have seen, and we have to have practices around it. So it's still a question which don't have a straight answer, but I think that's how I handle it.
So Rajat, one thing that you mentioned earlier on, and I wanted to sort of understand that a little bit from you, that when you work across teams and individuals in a global context, do you notice any difference in the cultural nuances when it comes to application of strengths? So when you're working with teams across the globe, how does that tend to manifest itself in terms of people's own self-awareness, they're accepting their strengths, and then the application of what they've learned? Anything around that?
Yeah, so as a Gallup-certified coach, I was really asked to support this initiative. And there was a lot of focus in terms of returns on investment. How can this culminate into some clear outcomes, and that too very quickly? Now, I saw that as a bit of challenge, and also, not really given enough space to let the strengths philosophy show up. So I said I need to speak to individuals, which I did, and got a deep dive. I think on the other side, HR clearly wanted to know where they need to improve. What is it that they can do better? So, and I was constantly reminding that, it's about what they can really do well, extremely well, based on their talent themes. So let's focus on that, and let's give them more opportunity to do more of that. We are not even talking about role changes or changing their job description. But interestingly, the business unit was open to do that, at least, to once they would know what they're good at, to give them accordingly a role. So it was really a very interesting exercise. Of course, I used the Gallup's team grid. I used that and put the the strengths, top 5 there, and looked at what they are strong in the 4 domains of execution, influence, strategic thinking, relationship building. And I also actually measured them in terms of percentage. So, for example, relationship was 36% on the strength in terms of, the best domain. If you look at the domain, the kind of exercise puja we did in our certification program. Yeah. So we looked, I used, that learning that you guys had shared with us. So that was my starting point. And then gave those percentage. Then both the relationship was the strongest. Then execution and strategic thinking were the next two, almost at par in terms of 24%. And the fourth ranking was the influence. So it seemed one thing was very clear, that the team is actually having the right kind of orientation in terms of domain. 4 domains, because they were more client facing. They used to work globally in different countries with different clients, and they really have to be good at relationship building. So they were leading with relationship, including their own leader, the business unit leader. Also, I had seen even that from the leader's perspective. Also, they had more a relationship oriented, and that reflected in their entire, it seems they were hiring based on that. So that was interesting. Now the next step was really, I was asked a question, now what next? This is information is good, but now how do we translate it into really ROI? So I said, okay, now what's your objectives? So HR came in and said, there are certain competencies on which we actually want to evaluate everybody. So I said, give me those competencies. So we had the team competencies on one side. For example, and team's expectation, what kind of work they really need to do. For example, their typical work included consulting work, delivery work, which is more engaging with the client and delivering on a particular day, making project management kind of work, thought leadership, and responding to the proposals. These are some of the areas where they need to work. Then I started to look at, each of the person's strengths, and also I had a detailed conversation with each one of them. So I already identified where they really, enjoy working, where can they contribute more, and I mapped this information which I received both from coaching and from the report back to this framework of, the work area, where they need to contribute, and then that I shared with them, and that was an eye opener. That was actually aha moment. They said, okay, because I could clearly tell that out of these people, these folks are very good in doing this because of this, because they're natural here. And almost they kind of agreed, because that they were all their teammates and they could see them in action. It's not that I was telling them. They knew more about them, but the moment I said, they were really surprised that I could know so much about them just by this conversation. I'm not part of their team. I was coming as an external Gallup coach. So that built a lot of credibility in terms of the framework that I got from Gallup, the learnings that we had from you and Vikas in the program, and also application of that in context of this situation. As a last step in the exercise, we identified that this person is very good in this, is a keen in this area, but needs support. So I said, HR, and the learning, both the teams, you understand that they're, for example, already an achiever, already an activator, already have harmony, already are restorative, they know they can do problem solving. You need to give them those kind of opportunities. And if you have trainings which kind of unlock that more for them, which means framework, which means how to do this, they know why to do it. You don't have to worry about that. How to do this. If your trainings, if somebody is strong in communication, then you could give the person a training. There is a typical training, how to work with the boardroom audience. And that person in my coaching conversation said that I can just walk in like this and I can connect with the audience. I'm pretty good in communication, and communication was one of his top 5. I said, he's already good. You need to tell him with whom to engage and those kind of perspectives, and then he can grow. So, and the good thing is the leader of the business unit wanted to have a growth path up till 2015. Basis this information, they are now planning a roadmap so that this team can be actually seen as and it is already a high performing team, very high performing team, and this can be seen as even the top performing team set new benchmarks in the organization. So this is a kind of a pilot exercise. It's not a full-blown across the organization, because I was there and the team had taken the initiative. They were open. So all this really culminated into some meaningful work.
I think that's such a great example of how you've applied it, because the one thing that we also insist, I mean, we don't recommend using the tool for hiring, because what we've always maintained is it's
Correct.
not about there's no magic potion, there's no magic formula that these are the top 5 that will help you be a better, an IT person or a better manager or a better marketing person. It's about how much are you getting to use your talents and how you're getting to use it. So of course, yes, role fitment to some extent is what you was also suggesting that you did is a great thing. The other thing that you can help them also look at is instead of the what I should be doing, focus on how I should be doing it, because depending on what my talents are versus what your talents are, we may end up with the same outcome but in a different manner. So, and that manner is going to be determined by what we are naturally good at, rather than, I'll try and emulate whatever you do just because you're successful. That may not always work. So I'll have to have my own path. So when you have growth paths up till 2015, it's about help this guy do these things more, which will ultimately help in that outcome, except that whatever he's doing is in tandem with the natural talents that he has. So that always gives people a aha moment. And if you think about it, that's ROI, because if I'm able to do something in a more efficient manner, because that's what I do best, I'm in some way affecting the ROI, because I'm doing it either faster or leaner, or I'm having that environment in which I'm engaging the team as well.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
It's a great example. Thanks, Rajat. Jim, do we have any questions from the chat room at all?
Yeah, we've been kind of having our own conversation out there with the chat, but going back to kind of what you just said, there had been a question earlier about typical, and we see this a lot in the chat room in these questions. Is there a typical strengths profile for coaches, right? Do we see that? And Pooja, you just kind of answered that. No, it doesn't tell you what you can do, but how you can do it. I go back to my own management team at Gallup. We're all Gallup employees. There's 12 of us on the team, and we all have a very unique talent set that does not, we don't match each other. And I think that's actually good, because we take on various roles. In my role, of course, Woo in communication, number 2 and number 4. I'm playing a role in that right now. This is not a typical management role, right, that I'm playing in with you guys right now at this point, but it allows me to do some things with both my team and for Gallup that put me in a place that tell me how to do my job, and they allow me to do that kind of based on my particular talent set. So that's kind of how it goes. There is one question. Does it help identify future leaders? So as you're looking at this in your experience, is there a way to identify future leaders out of it? And actually, now that I say that, let me do this with a caveat. I didn't read the question up before. We were talking about the entrepreneurial strengths finder earlier when you were off, and so he was referring to that. But let me ask that question: in leadership with strengths finder, do we see certain themes in that, or how do we approach that when we talk about leadership?
Yeah, I think Pooja, you're going to take this.
Sure, I'll take that. The way I approach that question is that Gallup has done a lot of work on leadership as well, and when we identified what are some of the demands of leadership that make people successful in what they do, one of the most prominent ones is called knowing self. So it's not about which talent themes you have, but it is a lot about how aware a leader is of his own personal strengths versus limitations. Because the more comfortable a leader is around things that he does well, and equally comfortable with things that he does not do well, what tends to happen is you appear as more genuine, you're more comfortable around what you're doing, and that is one very important piece that makes you a successful leader. So not predictive in that sense, but definitely one of the ingredients for a successful leadership role. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, and I can add, I think exactly, again, these talents and themes are not predictors, but we have to apply it in an ecosystem. So taking challenge, I think about the way Pooja said, I would say, in addition, how do you see the challenge and go through and, apply those talent themes, take it as an opportunity and come out, come out as more aware as Pooja said about know thyself. You would know only when you have tested waters. There's no other way. You know your strengths and you don't do anything about it. That doesn't make any difference. But once you have the opportunity or a challenge, you go through it with your strengths awareness. I think from the other side of this journey, there will be a leadership, is my view.
Okay, so Natul asks this out there. He says, when is the team leader open to be coached with StrengthsFinder? When, in your experience, do you find you get resistance from the team leaders or from the managers before?
Excellent. I think it's a great question, and the answer is, in some cases, it isn't there, but in many cases, this resistance is there. I think unless people really know. So to give you an example, when I'm again triggered another initiative with another team, and I procured the codes for them. The message was, by mistakes, by somebody was saying that this is an assessment code to assess your strengths and weaknesses. So, when I saw that message, I got, not at all, this is not about that. And also at the team leader level, I've seen they probably baroque it for the team to be done, but when it comes to themselves or the team, they feel maybe then people will know enough about their own, own construct, which we have to manage. And I have, in my engagements, yes, that is a work that needs to be done, and it can only be done in a way that need to make them understand, point them to Gallup resources, explain them what this whole approach is. This is about positive psychology. All 34 in some intensity exist, but there is some part of it which is highly intense, and we are focusing on that intensity to make a difference. It's you want to go down, you continue to look, you have everything, but what is it that you are natural, strongest, and you can be greatest at? So that kind of thing.
Yeah, absolutely. I think working with team leaders is a bit like preparing the soil, because unless the soil is prepared and the team leader is on board, it'll be difficult to have the team subscribe to the point of view of I want to work with my strengths rather than whatever the team leader is in favor of. So it's definitely step one in the team transformation process.
Yeah.
One more question. This one really kind of comes from me as I've done these Call to Coach events all around the world. We always kind of ask this cultural bias question. And in this case, I want to say, with all your work, you've done a lot of stuff around the globe, but with India in particular, do you see what's the greatest struggle for strengths adoption that you see in India? What's the hurdle there that stops people from doing this or from wanting to be coached on it or some of those kinds of things? What do you think is the number one hurdle there to overcome?
I think the way for right from the childhood, it's very competitive, because of various reasons. So the way the mindset continues to be built is more on improving where there is a need to, improve. There are pre-identified weaknesses. The entire system in terms of maybe schooling also is contributing to that. Some of the best performing schools look at grades, look at the academics. So there is much more in India as a country. There's a lot of focus on academics. That's known. There is the positive side is you have academic excellence, but in the strength, so everybody tries to strive, and in that process, a lot of people with other talents miss out. And I think that is more of a. But I'm seeing a big change in terms of the parents now keen to allow their kids to experiment, and again I think the exposure to the global education system, the media, everything, and also a lot of excellence is happening besides the education system in another streams also. In every stream it's happening. For example, sports are picking up. So I see that shift is happening. Wherever I have talked, I have also worked with some students. There is a lot of openness, there's a lot of excitement, and teachers validate. They said, okay, we like the idea. I think only probably more work needs to be done by all of us in that direction.
And if you could wave a magic wand and fix something overnight, boom, what would you change in that equation that would maybe accelerate the adoption of strengths?
I think one simple thing which I really want to change, and it's been my journey from last 10 years, is really people looking at others as potentials to be unleashed. And maybe it sounds cliche, but To simplify it, it should be really the opportunity to, for them to do what they do well, more effort, more investment by the managers, by the companies, and I think some of the companies are doing and getting great returns. So I think this one thing of me looking at the other person and seeing what this person can be, world's best at. Mine is maximizer. Even in my coaching, I always look at, how can you be world's best? Sometimes, it's not easy, but I want to. This is the same magic wand I would like all of us to have, is to see how can anybody can be world's best in anything. That's very open, but something you can be great at.
And one more question from Natul out there in chat. He says, would you consider yourself a performance coach or a strengths coach? What's more appropriate in the way you position yourself?
Strengths coach.
All right, straight up. Pooja, anything we want to highlight? I know we've got some things going on there in India. Anything you want to highlight before we wrap this up?
I'll just mention the next date for the accelerated program, which is happening in Bangalore from December 8th. The week of December 8th is where we have the accelerated program coming up. Apart from that, it is Diwali week here in India, so I want to wish everyone a very, very happy and prosperous Diwali.
Very good, and I will let you know that we have all kinds of events all around the world actually going on here. I'm going to be very busy as I attempt to do these in every time zone known to man. Actually, speaking this actual week, I had an opportunity to do, at the end of the week, I could have done 4 different time zones. We could have done events in 4 different time zones. Fortunately, I weaseled my way out of one of them, so it's just 3 at this point. But we have all kinds of events going up. Head out to Gallup.eventbrite.com. That lists all our Call to Coach events that are out there. If you want to see where all our training is available around the world, you can go out to Gallup-Strengths.com. We have a list of everything that's available out there. It's a good way to stay in touch with us. We have brand new applications coming out for you as well, iPhone and Android apps for your strengths, so you can't find your you can't remember, and some people can't from time to time. Well, what were those top 5? And most people can only remember 4. Now, if you search Strengths Finder on your iPhone or your Android, and that Android device is brand new, or that app, they're all free, and you can get those available out there in the stores, and they are available. Look those up as well. We also have, maybe you're wondering, hey, I'd really like to listen to Call to Coach when I'm on the train, or I'm on the bus, or I'm going somewhere, maybe on my mobile device. In some way, we have brand new RSS feeds that are available out there as well. If you actually just go to the iTunes store and search for Strength Center, I think, or Strengths Finder, there we go. It'll pop up. These podcasts will pop up there. So search for that stuff. We're everywhere now. You should be able to watch that wherever you go, doing everything and anything. You can find our programs there as well. I want to thank everybody for coming out today. Sorry, but if you're watching live, sorry about the issues that we had. We recovered from those pretty quickly. We'll be back here again in a month. Pooja will be back with me again. We'll do one more, another edition of the 7th one we've done in India, and we'll look forward to that again. Rajat, thank you for taking the time and being patient with us tonight as well. Great to meet you, and we'll look forward to kind of following you and all the things that you do there as well. For everyone here, we'll say good day and good night, and thanks for listening.